Welcome to Talk Treatises.
Glad to be here.
I am your host, and as always, I am joined by our resident expert to guide us through the dusty, hallowed halls of literature and philosophy.
The dustier, the better.
Exactly. And today we are not strictly looking at a dry tract on economics, nor are we dissecting some, political manifesto from the Enlightenment.
No, we are stepping into a story today.
We are, but to call it just a story would be a huge disservice.
Oh, absolutely.
Because we are opening the pages of a text that many scholars consider to be a foundational document.
Right.
Arguably the very first full-length American detective novel.
It's a real pleasure to be back for this one. And you're totally right to frame this as a significant historical artifact, not just fiction.
Mm-hmm.
We're stepping into the year 1866. So, context-wise, the American Civil War has just ended.
Right. The country is fracturing and healing simultaneously.
Precisely. And we are entering this world of gaslight, steam trains, and the heavy velvet-draped parlors of the post-war era.
A very specific vibe.
Very. And the book we're looking at is called The Dead Letter.
Written by Metta Victoria Fuller Victor.
Yes, though it's worth noting it was originally published under the pseudonym Seeley Register.
And that pseudonym is interesting in itself, isn't it?
Oh, definitely.
You have a woman writing in a genre that was, frankly, barely even defined at that point, adopting this gender-neutral or masculine name to carry weight.
Could get taken seriously by the establishment. Yeah.
Right. But beyond the author, the book itself is this fascinating collision of genres.
It really sits right at the intersection.
Yeah, of the Gothic romance.
With the haunted houses and brooding villains.
Exactly. And the modern police procedural. I mean, it was written before Sherlock Holmes ever picked up a magnifying glass.
Or smoked a pipe.
Right. And yet, as we are going to see today, it establishes these tropes and archetypes that are still the absolute bedrock of shows like Law & Order or True Detective.
It's wild how much of the modern DNA is in this 1866 text.
It is. But beyond those genre mechanics, which, are impressive for the time, it is a profound exploration of fate.
Yeah, the philosophical core of it.
It asks a very specific philosophical question that I think resonates with you listening to this today, in any era, really.
Which is, how does the universe balance the scales?
Exactly. When a secret is buried, when a crime is committed in the dark, does the world itself sort of conspire to bring it to light?
Is justice a human invention, or is it a natural law?
Like gravity.
Like gravity, exactly.
So it feels like a text that is obsessed with the idea of justice with a capital J.
Not just the law, not the statutes and the courts.
Right, a kind of divine magnetic inevitability.
That's a great way to put it.
So before we get into the weeds of the plot, and there's some very tangled weeds in this garden.
Lots of red herrings.
Secret codes, the whole 9 yards. Let's set the stage. For everyone listening, what is the mission of this deep dive?
Our mission today is to dissect the dead letter, not merely as a whodunit, but as a full-blown treatise on the nature of guilt and the reliability of evidence.
Okay.
We want to understand how the text argues that material evidence...
You mean the things we can see and touch?
Right, the fingerprints, the footprints, the physical clues, how all of that is actually secondary to psychological and spiritual intuition.
That's a huge pivot from how we think of detectives today.
It is. We are going to look at the intersection of logic and spiritualism, which, let's remember, was a huge obsession in the mid-19th century.
Well, yeah, seances and mediums were everywhere.
Exactly.
Huh.
We want to see how this book argues that the soul is a more reliable witness than the eye.
Okay, let's unpack this, because if I asked you to boil this entire novel down to a single philosophical thesis statement, what would it be?
I would say the thesis is this. Justice is a divine, almost electrical force that uses human agents as mere instruments.
Mere instruments.
Yes. The text argues that the truth cannot be destroyed. It can only be delayed. And significantly, it suggests that the scientific method of solving a crime requires a synthesis of cold logic and warm, empathetic intuition.
And when you say intuition, in this context, we're talking about...
Specifically clairvoyance or magnetism. It argues you simply cannot solve a human mystery without engaging with the supernatural or the spiritual elements of the human psyche.
That is a very bold claim for a detective novel.
Especially one that claims to be about finding the facts.
Right. So let's jump right into the text then. The story opens with a setting that is frankly iconic and one that gives the book its title.
We are in Washington, D.C.
In the dead letter office.
Such a striking opening image. the dead letter office.
Just the name evokes a sense of purgatory.
It really does. This is the place where communication goes to die.
You have to imagine the sheer volume of it.
Thousands and thousands of letters.
Love letters, business contracts, conspiracies, family secrets.
All of them never having reached their destination.
They are just suspended in time, piled up in sacks, waiting to be burned or sorted.
And into this purgatory, we are introduced to our narrator, a man named Richard Redfield.
And Richard describes himself as a man of intelligence. He fits that, that normal benchmark +3 standard deviations profile we talk about sometimes.
He's sharp. He's educated.
But here he is working this incredibly mechanical, monotonous job.
Sorting through the graveyard of mail.
Yeah.
Richard is your classic observer archetype.
Yeah.
He represents the displaced intellectual.
He seems somewhat detached at the start, maybe a bit cynical.
Definitely cynical. He notes that the government, the bureaucracy he works for, doesn't care about sentiment at all.
Right. The office only cares about material value.
Exactly. They look for bank bills, gold pieces, jewelry.
And if a letter contains, say, a withered rosebud or a lock of hair,
It is considered trash. Straight to the incinerator.
But to Richard, those things are the tragic debris of human life.
And this setting brilliantly establishes the central tension of the book right away.
Which is what
The conflict between the cold material world of the government, or the law, and the hot pulsating world of human emotion.
I see. It's the difference between value and worth.
That's a perfect way to phrase it. The government sees value in cash. Richard sees worth in the secrets.
And then the insulting incident happens.
And it's almost supernatural how it is described in the text.
Richard picks up a letter. It's old. It's dated October 18th, 1857.
Which is 2 years before the current action of the story's opening.
And he feels something.
He calls it magnetism.
Magnetism.
He says he enters a state of en rapport with the letter before he even breaks the seal.
This is a crucial moment. The text is telling us immediately that intuition is a valid form of knowledge.
Absolutely. He isn't reacting to the handwriting or the stamp initially. He is reacting to the aura of the object itself.
He connects the date, that October 18th date, to a personal tragedy in his past.
And it triggers a somatic, totally physical response in him.
Right. He actually mentions a sudden pause in his work. He is paralyzed by it.
He is.
So he opens it, and the contents are, well, they're completely cryptic.
Let's read the key phrases from the text for you listening so you can hear how weird this is.
Go ahead.
It's addressed to a John Owen.
Okay.
And it is signed by Negotiator.
Negotiator. Not a name, a title.
Right. And it says things like, that old friend I introduced you to won't tell tales.
Creepy.
And don't feel in his left-hand pocket for the broken toothpick.
The broken toothpick.
And there's also something about taking a picture.
Now, to a casual reader, or perhaps to the other clerks sitting right there in the office who lack Richard's specific history.
It's gibberish. It sounds like total nonsense.
But to Richard, it is a lightning bolt.
He realizes in that moment that this dead letter is the missing link to a murder.
A murder that destroyed his life and the lives of the people he loved most.
Because taking a picture is clearly a euphemism for a violent act in this context.
And the broken toothpick suggests a weapon.
Exactly. So this sets up the frame narrative.
Right. The book is essentially a long flashback from this point.
Richard takes us back 2 years to explain why this little piece of paper makes him physically tremble.
So we leave the dead letter office, this purgatory of paper, and we jump back in time to the town of Blankville.
A somewhat generic name, but it has a very specific atmosphere.
We are introduced to the Argyle family. Tell us a bit about them.
The Argyle family represents the absolute American aristocracy of the time.
The upper crust.
Yes. You have John Argyle, the patriarch. He is a lawyer, a man of wealth and standing.
He represents order, law, social stability.
Very much so. Then you have his daughters. Eleanor is the eldest. She is the beauty, the saint of the family.
Then Mary.
Mary is the younger sister, who is described in the text as a hummingbird. She is full of life and honey.
A very different energy from Eleanor.
Completely. And then you have the narrator, Richard Redfield.
Who is an orphan.
Yes, taken in by Mr. Argyle, and he is working for him as a law student.
And there is a romantic tension right off the bat here. Richard is secretly in love with Eleanor.
Oh, of course he is.
And here's the Gothic tragedy of it. Eleanor is already engaged to the perfect man.
Henry Morland.
Henry Morland.
Henry Morland is portrayed as the ideal. He is a banker, socially impeccable, morally completely unblemished.
He and Eleanor are described as a match made in heaven.
And In a literary sense, as we've discussed on Talk Treatises before, Henry Morland is almost too perfect.
Oh, absolutely.
He represents total order, total happiness. He has no edges, no flaws whatsoever.
And in Gothic literature, total happiness is basically a vacuum that disaster just rushes into to fill.
That's the rule of the genre.
Yeah.
You cannot have a character that perfect survive the first act.
He's doomed from page one.
Doomed.
But we have to talk about the other member of the household.
Yes.
Snake in the garden.
Yea, Zargot.
The nephew. James is the fascinating character here.
If Henry Morland is the light, James is the shadow.
He is described as sullen, selfish.
And he plays the piano, but the text makes a point to note that his music is thunderous and discordant.
That is such a brilliant little detail, using music to signal moral corruption.
It's great characterization. He is the Mephistopheles archetype of the story.
And Richard notes this distinct tension between them constantly.
They are rivals. Rivals for status in the uncle's eyes and rivals for affection.
Because James, like Richard, is also in love with Eleanor.
But his love is possessive. It's dark and covetous.
So the stage is completely set. We have a stormy night in October. The atmosphere is incredibly thick.
The text describes the steam eagle, the train whistle screaming like a sentient warning.
That is such a vivid image. The steam eagle.
It represents the intrusion of the industrial mechanical world into this safe domestic sphere, bringing death right along with it.
It's loud, it's violent, it literally shrieks.
Meanwhile, Eleanor is dressed in blue silk, waiting for Henry to arrive from the city on that train.
James is pounding on the piano, creating the sonic chaos in the parlor.
And Richard is brooding by the window.
It is a tableau of pure anxiety. The weather itself is conspiring to set the mood for tragedy here. Henry doesn't come.
The train arrives at the station, but Henry does not walk through the door.
The tension in the house stretches to the breaking point.
They try to have tea, they try to just be normal, but there's this heavy sense of doom.
And the next morning, the sun is shining, the storm has passed, but the world has fundamentally changed.
Henry Morland is found dead.
Stabbed.
Under the great oak trees on the estate.
The description of the aftermath is really harrowing.
It is. Eleanor doesn't scream and faint in the traditional Victorian swoon.
No, she turns into a statue.
She descends into a statue-like grief that is honestly almost more disturbing than hysteria would be.
It is a psychological death for her. She becomes the living dead.
But amidst all this chaos and grief, Richard spots something, or rather, someone.
And this is our first real clue in the mystery, though it functions largely as a red herring.
He sees a woman mourning over the body.
A woman who is definitely not Eleanor.
Lizzie Sullivan.
Richard tracks her. He finds a handkerchief with the initials LS stamped into the mud near the crime scene.
And this is where the detective element of the novel truly kicks in.
Richard decides to play investigator.
He sees a strange woman. He finds physical evidence linking her to the scene, and he assumes a direct correlation.
Right. She was there. She left her handkerchief. She was crying over him. Therefore, she must be involved.
It is a perfectly logical assumption.
But as the text will show us, logic without intuition can lead you astray.
Completely astray. He is reading the material signs, but he's completely missing the spiritual context of the scene.
Which brings us to the introduction of the real star of the show, in my opinion.
Enter Mr. Burton.
Mr. Burton is a remarkable creation for 1866.
He really is. He is introduced not as a police officer, because police were often seen as corrupt or just incompetent in this era.
Right.
But he's introduced as a wealthy man who works as a detective for the sheer love of justice.
He used to be a merchant, right?
Yes, but after a personal experience where he couldn't prove the guilt of men who burned his property, he had this realization that the legal system was flawed.
It was inadequate.
So he needed to become a hunter of men to balance the scales himself.
He is described as a seer.
He has a double life.
Explain that a bit.
Well, he is a deeply loving father to his invalid daughter, Lenore, on the one hand, but a relentless, almost predatory pursuer of criminals on the other.
And his methods are eclectic, to say the least.
Eclectic is a very polite word for it.
He combines inductive reasoning, very Sherlock Holmes style, with full-blown spiritualism.
He reads faces. Physiognomy was considered a legitimate science then.
He looks at Richard and instantly knows Richard is in love with Eleanor.
Just from his face. He looks at handwriting and can describe the writer's entire moral character.
But his most controversial tool, the one that really sets this book apart, is his daughter, Lenore.
Yes.
This is the part that really surprised me when reading it. He uses his daughter as a clairvoyant medium.
He does. And the text treats this with absolute seriousness.
This isn't presented as a parlor trick or a fraud.
Not at all. It's presented as a physical drain on the child's vitality.
Burton mesmerizes Lenore. He puts her into a trance, and she literally sees what the physical eye cannot.
It's an integration of the odic force theories of the time, this invisible energy connecting things.
Let's deep dive into that specific scene on the Brooklyn ferry, because it's wild.
Richard and Burton are trying to track Lizzie Sullivan because she is still the primary suspect at this point.
Right.
Burton puts Lenore in a trance right there. She mentally travels to the ferry, crosses to Brooklyn, and gives them a specific house address.
And the text describes this as a nervous phenomenon. It literally says it is draining her vitality.
Which reflects the 19th century attempt to reconcile science and superstition.
You didn't call it magic.
They called it magnetism or electrical affinity. They tried desperately to give it a scientific vocabulary.
So Burton is basically using his daughter like a Geiger counter for guilt.
That's exactly what he's doing.
So, relying on this vision, they go to the house in Brooklyn, and this leads us into the investigation of Lizzie Sullivan.
Richard is entirely convinced she is the killer.
I mean, she was at the body, she dropped the handkerchief, she ran away.
It looks really bad for her. And then there is the haunted villa subplot.
Oh yes, the empty Moreland villa.
The house where Henry and Eleanor were supposed to live together. It's standing empty, and the housekeeper claims it is haunted.
She sees lights, she hears steps in the night.
Richard, being the skeptic, decides to investigate.
And what he finds is Lizzie Sullivan living up in the attic.
The ghost is a flesh and blood woman.
Lizzie has been hiding there, literally worshiping the memory of Henry Moreland.
And here we get a really profound character study from the author.
Lizzie is the Magdalene figure.
She loved Henry Moreland from afar. Her love was pure, unrequited, and totally self-abnegating.
She tells him she didn't kill him, she only wanted to mourn him.
She was a working-class seamstress. He was a gentleman. She knew she could never actually have him, but she loved him anyway.
This is a crucial distinction the text is making. She is innocent of the crime of murder, but in the eyes of Victorian society, she is intensely guilty of social impropriety.
Precisely. She is a lower-class woman who dared to romantically love a gentleman.
And yet the text handles her with surprising sympathy.
It does. Burton, the detective, recognizes her innocence almost immediately upon meeting her face-to-face.
He sees into her soul.
He realizes that a woman who loved Henry, that deeply could not possibly have destroyed him.
This clears the board of the red herring. It forces them to look much closer to home.
And it completely validates Burton's method. He uses empathy to filter the raw evidence.
The physical evidence said guilty, the handkerchief, but the spiritual evidence said innocent her grief.
Exactly.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because if it wasn't the strange woman in the garden, who was it?
The narrative pivot turns sharply toward James Argyle,
The Mephistopheles of the family.
Richard and Burton track James to a gambling den in New York.
This is a highly significant scene because it reveals James's secret double life.
He is in debt, heavy, dangerous debt.
He owes money to a shady man named Bagley, and he promises payment within a month.
And we know, as the readers, that a large sum of money was stolen from Mr. Argyle's desk right around the time of the murder.
So the pieces are starting to fit together. Greed and jealousy.
The two oldest motives in human history.
James is also playing a really intense psychological game with Richard back at the house.
He knows Richard loves Eleanor, and he weaponizes that to poison the rest of the family against Richard.
He basically insinuates that Richard is the one who benefited from Henry's death.
It is a classic deflection tactic, a textbook projection.
He creates a narrative where Richard is the villain.
And because Richard is sensitive and frankly a bit proud, he pulls away from the family, which only serves to make him look more suspicious.
Burton calls James a panther. He warns Richard about his evil eye.
There is a palpable tension in the text between the detective's gaze, which seeks the truth, and the criminal's gaze, which seeks to obscure it.
The text treats James's gaze almost as a physical weapon.
It does.
So they have the suspicion now, but they need the actual proof.
Which brings us back full circle to the dead letter.
We're back in the present day of the novel's timeline. Richard has just found the letter in the office.
He rushes to Burton with it immediately.
And this is the major breakthrough. The letter is a cipher.
It reads like nonsense. That old friend I introduced you to won't tell tales. Broken toothpick. Taking a picture.
But Burton, with his synthesized intellect, decodes it instantly.
He says it is written by contrary.
Contraries, meaning the opposite of what it says.
In a sense, or rather using innocuous code words to mask of violent reality.
Okay, break it down for us.
Burton deduces that the old friend refers to the oak tree where the body was found, a silent witness that won't tell tales.
The broken toothpick is the murder weapon, a broken dagger.
And taking a picture refers to taking a life, the murder itself.
So the letter is basically a receipt for a contract killing.
Exactly. It confirms there was a wider conspiracy. James didn't hold the knife himself. He hired someone.
The letter was written by the assassin to James, who was addressed as John Owen, telling him where the weapon was hidden because the assassin couldn't safely retrieve it.
So Richard and Burton realize they have to go back to Blankville.
They have to sneak onto the estate at night to check the tree.
This is the primal scene of the whole investigation. They reach into the hollow of the old oak tree, and lo and behold, they feel cold steel.
They find the broken dagger.
The physical evidence finally catches up with the intuition. The spiritual hunch led them directly to the material proof.
But while they are hiding there by the tree in the dark, they see something else that just turns Richard's stomach.
They see James Argyle actively courting Mary.
Remember, Eleanor is ruined by grief. She is a saint now, completely unapproachable.
So James has seamlessly transferred his ambition to the younger sister, Mary.
Because he needs the Argyle fortune.
If he can't have Eleanor, he will take Mary.
The text uses that snake in the garden imagery here again, doesn't it?
It heavily relies on it. It's a biblical violation. He killed the first lover, destroyed the eldest sister, and is now literally coiling around the younger one.
It heightens the urgency so much. They have to stop him before he ruins Mary's life too.
It transforms their mission from just justice for the dead to active protection for the living.
So they have the weapon, they have the letter. Now they need the man who actually wrote the letter, the assassin.
The letter is signed negotiator.
Right.
Burton analyzes the handwriting, again, using that forensic graphology we talked about, and identifies him as George Thorley.
Thorley was a disgraced druggist and doctor from the village who conveniently disappeared right after the murder.
And where is he now?
Let me guess. He's in Mexico.
He is in Mexico.
Of course he is. So we get a full-blown chase sequence.
We really do. Burton and Richard travel all the way to California, then double back down to Acapulco. It becomes a global manhunt.
They find Thorley living as Dr. Seltzer, married to a wealthy Mexican heiress.
He has prospered on his blood money.
Burton finally confronts him. And this isn't a physical fight so much as a sheer battle of wills.
Burton corners him on a mountain path. He reveals he knows everything. And he uses that magnetism again, that overwhelming force of personality.
Thorley just crumbles.
He confesses everything. He admits he was hired by James Argyle for $2,000.
$2,000 to kill a perfect man.
It highlights the absolute banality of evil. James hated Henry Moreland out of pure jealousy. Henry was everything James wasn't, and he needed money to cover his debts.
He stole the money from his uncle to pay the assassin to kill the man who stood in his way.
It's completely transactional.
So they have the confession, they return to New York, the trap is officially set.
And we get the climax, which feels very Agatha Christie, even though, again, this predates her by half a century.
The parlor scene.
Burton gathers everyone together. The Argyle family, Lizzie Sullivan, who is rapidly dying of consumption, fulfilling the tragic victim trope, and Richard.
He lays it all out.
He reveals the entire history of the crime, step by grueling step.
And then we get this bizarre twist on justice. He accuses James right there in front of everyone, but he doesn't clap him in irons.
No, he doesn't. And this is where the book's philosophy becomes very specific to its time and perhaps to its female author's perspective on family honor.
Burton just allows James to flee.
Yes.
Why? Why let him go after all of this?
To spare the family name, a public trial would drag the pristine Argyle name through the mud of the penny press.
It would completely destroy Mr. Argyle, the patriarch.
So they'd choose a different kind of justice, exile.
James is banished like Cain.
He's cast out of the garden to wander the earth forever.
So let's look at the ultimate fate of all these characters. James is exiled.
Lizzie Sullivan dies.
She has to, narratively speaking, because she's too pure for this gritty world.
She dies of consumption, yes. She is the sacrificial lamb of the Victorian class system.
And Richard marries Mary.
Yes.
Wait, not Eleanor. He was in love with Eleanor this whole time.
No, Eleanor remains the sainted figure.
Right.
She is completely devoted to Henry's memory. She becomes a figure of perpetual mourning.
So Richard, who originally pined for Eleanor, eventually finds happiness with the younger, more vibrant Mary.
It's a surprisingly pragmatic resolution. Life just goes on for the survivors.
And what about Mr. Burton?
The text briefly tells us in an epilogue that he is later poisoned by enemies.
Wow.
He becomes a literal martyr to his own crusade for justice. It's a very somber note to end on.
So what does this all mean for us? Let's transition into our analysis of the themes. The book seems to be making a huge overarching point about the fallibility of evidence.
It definitely is. Think about it. All the circumstantial evidence pointed straight to Richard.
He was jealous. He was there. He benefited from the death.
If you looked only at the facts on the surface, Richard hangs for this crime.
But the truth was found through what? Just coincidence?
Through magnetic coincidence. The dead letter refusing to be lost in the system.
The text argues that the universe itself actually conspires to reveal the truth.
It's a highly providential view of justice. The evidence that actually mattered wasn't the logic. It was the spiritual insight, Lenore's vision, Burton's intuition.
There is also a very clear moral hierarchy established in the book.
Very clear. You have Eleanor at the very top, the saint.
Then Mary the prize.
Richard the hero.
Lizzie the tragic victim.
And James the irredeemable villain.
It perfectly reflects the Victorian view of good blood versus bad blood.
James is described as having a discordant nature from birth. Thorley is described as being bad from instinct. There is a strong sense of biological determinism running through the narrative.
And how does Burton compare to the great detectives that followed him? We mentioned Holmes earlier.
Burton is really the missing link between Edgar Allan Poe's C. Auguste Dupin and Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes.
Dupin is pure intellect.
And Holmes is pure deduction and observation. But Burton is distinct because he heavily relies on sympathy.
He feels the emotions of the people involved.
He uses spiritualism. He's a feeler just as much as he is a thinker.
It's so interesting that the first American detective novel features a detective who relies so heavily on empathy and intuition rather than just cold, hard facts.
It might reflect the fact that the author was a woman. Metta Victoria Fuller Victor weaves the domestic and the emotional into the procedural mechanics in a way that feels incredibly unique even today.
All right, this brings us to my favorite part of the show. We've looked at the past, now let's look at the future. It's time for our thought experiment segment.
Let's do it.
Disclaimer. The following scenarios are for entertainment and educational purposes only. They are outlandish but plausible philosophical exercises inspired by the text.
Duly noted.
Thought experiment number 1. The panopticon of the dead letter.
Ooh, I like the sound of that.
So in the book, the dead letter office is the ultimate mechanism of truth. Justice depends on a system failure. The letter getting lost and then miraculously found.
Right.
But imagine a society where every piece of unread or discarding communication is legally mandated to be analyzed.
Every single one.
Not by a human clerk, but by an AI Burton.
So a digital purgatory where every deleted draft, every unsent email, every abandoned text message is scanned for truth.
Exactly. If privacy, the sealed letter, protects the guilty, like James Argyle, is the dead letter office total transparency of abandoned thoughts the ultimate moral authority?
That is a tough question.
Yeah. Does the right to a secret outweigh the right to justice for a victim?
That is genuinely terrifying. And it connects directly to modern digital forensics.
But we talk a lot about the right to be forgotten in Europe and elsewhere.
But this thought experiment suggests a right to truth. If James Argyle lived today, he would have just deleted that text message from the assassin.
But the AI Burton would find it in the cloud.
If we accept the premise of the book, that the universe inherently wants the truth to come out, then maybe privacy is just an obstacle to cosmic justice.
But if we value human autonomy,
then that panopticon is a total dystopia. It means we are never, ever allowed to bury our sins or even our passing dark thoughts.
And remember, James Argyle was allowed to flee. In the AI panopticon, there is no exile. There is only immediate algorithmic exposure.
Which removes the human element of mercy or family honor that the book clearly seems to value.
All right, thought experiment number 2. The clairvoyant jurisprudence. Burton uses Lenore to find the trail. She goes into a trance. He uses that vision to find the house in Brooklyn. Now imagine a legal system that officially adopts the Burton Protocol.
The Burton Protocol, I love it.
A certified sensitive or intuitive provides the direction of an investigation. Their vision is legally admissible as a warrant for search, even without any material probable cause.
So if the sensitive says, "I see the knife in the oak tree," the police can legally tear the tree apart, even if there is zero logical reason to suspect the tree in the first place.
Right. If the sensitive has a 95% success rate, which is way higher than average police deduction, is it ethical to raid a home based on a trance?
Wow.
What happens to the presumption of innocence when the accuser is a vision rather than a physical witness?
This tests the absolute boundaries of reasonable suspicion. And honestly, we are already flirting with this today.
Are we? How so?
We use black box algorithms in policing right now. We have AI that predicts hotspots for crime before they happen.
Predictive policing.
Yes. We don't always know exactly how the AI knows. We just know it has a statistical success rate.
That is modern clairvoyance.
It is. It's a vision from a black box instead of a mesmerized girl. If we accept the algorithm, we are already accepting the Burton protocol.
Because it erodes the presumption of innocence. You can't cross-examine a vision.
And you can't cross-examine an algorithm either. You can only submit to its findings.
That is a chilling thought to leave our listeners with. We are basically living in the dead letter office of the future right now.
We really are.
So, to wrap this up, The Dead Letter, 1866. A story about a murder, a letter, and a detective who sees with his soul.
It is a beautiful reminder that the dead letter is only dead until it is read. The truth cannot be killed.
It can be buried in an oak tree.
It can be lost in the mail.
It can be hidden in Mexico.
But it has a buoyancy. It will always rise.
And Richard Redfield, our displaced intellectual.
He is the man who finally accepted his role as an instrument of fate. He didn't force the lock. He just waited for the key to be put in his hand.
And in the end, he got the girl. Maybe not the one he wanted first, but the one he needed.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for joining us on Talk Treatises. For you listening at home, keep reading and keep thinking.
Goodbye.